Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Bray Cove. Get down here off the point of Bray. Work your edges down here. Again, pay attention to what your tides are doing. Tides are really starting to drop out again on us. Water temps have been good. Unless there's something just real freakish cold front that's going to hit us that we're not aware of anytime soon, this water temps are still going to be hanging in those mid to upper 60s, creeping into the 70s. Almost putting these fish back into a springtime pattern. It's something to take notice of. Is however you fish during the springtime and areas that you fish, you may want to revisit some of those areas just to see if there's some fish hanging there. We're trying to get these fish to transition over to mud grass and clump shell primarily headed to the wintertime, but we haven't had any winter yet to speak of. We've had a few cold days here or there, which have been fine, but that's really not enough to get these fish into that pattern. So that said, look at some of these areas. Get back in this here in Bray, that big back lake that's right into here. Get back up in there. Pay attention what your water is. You may have to drop your boat and walk into it, depending on what wind we got, whether it's east, south, southeast, whatever. Work the outer edge of this again with the water levels that are dropping and not coming back till late. Then out here in the middle of Bray comes into play. There's some nice deep grass beds that are out here that you may want to explore that. Down south, Chicken of the Sea, Magic Grass have been the two things that have been really good in both the regular model and the super models. Soft dines, throwing the soft dine. Haven't thrown a tremendous amount of corkies, thrown them here and there, but try them, throw them, see what happens. If you're going to get closer to the shoreline, tie your topwater baits on. Topwater bait's still active. Fish are still going to respond to it. It's still a great bait. The burner shads, get up here off of this point over here around Bray. Wade all that area up in here, back around the corner toward the Texas Parks and Wildlife old broken down pier that's back in there. Great wading area. Find some bait working in this area. Depending on what wind you got, it can set up really well for you. Fish will push bait up against that shoreline one way or the other, either toward the little harbor that they've got over there or back toward this little point that just came around right there. Both those areas can be really good, providing that you've got bait. One thing that you've got to continue to remember is incorporate that major and minor during your fishing day to help with the productivity of your fish catching. Over here in St. Charles Bay, East Pocket, back around here, the point right across from the boat launch there at St. Charles, the whole shoreline headed all the way up to Egg Point, all the way up to Boy Scout Camp. Those shorelines are all in there, all in play. Nice trout being caught off of those. One thing that you need to remember, if you're not an artificial guy and you're not throwing artificials, you should at least try it. This is prime time artificial season for the next 3 to 4 months. The artificial game becomes really big during the winter months. You can really set yourself up with some really nice productive days catching some quality fish, because getting live bait this time of year becomes really difficult. That said, down souths, soft dines, XLs, double Ds, topwater baits, all three sizes of the down south, whether you want supermodel, regular model, burner shads, really good. All of them have been really good all along this shoreline, all the way up there. Again, like to Egg Point, down to Boy Scout Camp, get over in Cavasso and work Cavasso Creek. Over on Big Sharp, the point, running all the way down toward Cavasso. That area has been really good. Plastics primarily for me. Again, I'm going to throw plastics 95% of the time and incorporate some of the other baits periodically throughout a day if something kind of slows down, just to see what's going on. But those are the tickets for me. That's what I like to throw. You get back up toward Cow Chip, get over there right off what I call Duck Blind Road. There's 5, 6, 7 duck blinds that go across that shoreline just off of Cow Chip. That edge right there, again, with the water temps being what they are, it's kind of pushing fish back into areas that typically they would not be this time of year because of that. So it kind of opens up more water for you. So you can look over your mud and grass areas, and then you can get up maybe on some hard-packed sand and some grass to see if the fish have kind of migrated back to that. So key thing here is if you see some bait working. Again, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of bait, so if you see 1, 2, maybe 3 pieces of bait that flip here and there, this time of year, that's a lot of bait. So really work that. Target where that bait just flipped, because there could be a fish that's behind it chasing it. Work your down souths, work your soft dines. If you're not really proficient with the corkies, this is a really great time to start really working on that to help you get better with that, because that's an outstanding bait as we get into our colder months. You know, January's coming, February, all that's going to be here soon. So typically those months are colder for us, and so you really need to have that arsenal in your back pocket. Locate your trout, look for your bait. You'll be some nice redfish scattered in here. Pull out a flounder or two, all back up here in St. Charles. Down here in Long Reef Bend, again, with the water levels beginning to drop out, pay attention to what the levels are. Look at your tide reports, pay attention to those. So these areas here that's got all these little back lakes here at Long Reef Bend that we've talked about in the past before, they're great at different times, especially when the water drops. These little guts become prime targets for these fish to come out of the back flats, out of these back lakes. Deeper water, get in there, and they work all these areas. They'll get, some of them get really stacked up in there. If the water gets cool enough, get a little bit of bait working back in there, they'll hang out in that deeper gut. So when you wade these areas, you can get in these mouths, just work your baits. Work your down south, work your soft dines, work your corkies, work your topwater bait if you want to use it in exploration. But another thing too, if you're not real good with that and you're used to throwing, say, a popping cork and a shrimp underneath it, put a popping cork and tie a down south burner shad up underneath that and throw that thing off those edges and really work that, especially when the water's dirty. So you got a noise maker at the top, and then you got this bait that's underneath there just kind of flipping around. Plus, you don't have to worry about pin perch or piggies or anything like that chewing on it, because it's going to last a long time up underneath. So it's really productive from that standpoint. So it's a great locator. Fish can find it easy. Plus, you know, they get that little bit smaller bait in there. It becomes really, really productive for you. So when that water really drops out, go out here to the edge. Get out here a little bit deeper water that typically probably would have been belly deep on you. It's probably going to be around that thigh to knee deep water now. So these fish are going to push off these edges out here. All the way down here up here to Jaybird, there's some nice areas up in there. The drains that come off of those, you got the right kind of bottomness there. All the way down towards Spalding. Again, the one thing you have to be aware of up in here is all the oyster boats. A bunch of oyster boats are everywhere up here in Aransas Bay and Copano, Carlos, all these areas. So take that into consideration when you're going to run to these areas and adjust accordingly. You can catch fish. There are fish that are hanging in these areas. They are there. You just have to maybe work a little bit more for them to get them. All the beautiful back lakes that are here, bunch of nice drains that drop off in this. Again, pay attention what the tide's doing. See what your majors and minors, what's going on, where you're at with your moon phase. Always incorporate that into your day to help it be more productive. You can be having a tough day and you get into a major or minor, and then your bite kicks in and it turns it into a great day of catching. Get down in here into Spalding area. All that area back in there, those great back lakes that are there. You can wade up into some of these mouths. Some of them are not too terribly soft that you can wade back in there, and those fish will push up and down that. So you just have to work them. Work your plastics. Work your topwater bait back in here. Work that popping cork and a burner shad underneath there if that's what you like to do. Work the deeper edges. Work the guts. Work all those areas there. Look for some bait flipping in some of these. Duck season is still going, so make sure you take that into consideration as well. Make sure you don't see duck blind out there that's got decoys around it. More than likely there's going to be a hunter in it. So one of the other things to think about when you fish some of these areas that primarily have got a lot of duck blinds and possibly hunters in them. But all that said, great opportunities exist back in these areas here. Again, we're in a great opportunity this time of year with artificial baits because of this the colder months. It's really great for not having a lot of bait in the area. So work these areas, work the mouths, work the guts. You'll find your redfish and you'll find your trout.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.